Hi, I'm Vicki Stark, and I'm the author of Runaway Husbands. Today, I want to talk with you about the transformational stages. I remember when my husband first left, I felt as though my world had exploded. Everything was upside down and confusing, and I was suffering so terribly. I had this terrible emotional pain. And the thing I learned, surprisingly, is that emotional pain translates into physical pain. I had this pain in my body all the time, which I'm sure you can relate to. And I felt like, am I ever going to feel normal again? And so as time went on, as I passed through those early days and weeks and months, and eventually my evolution took place and my feelings started to shift. And over time, I started to feel better and feel more like myself. I realized that for a lot of people who are in the early stages of wife abandonment syndrome, you don't have that perspective to know that you are going to feel better. So in writing Runaway Husbands, I included a whole section in which I talk about the stages that you're going to be going through. And the purpose for that is so that you can have some hope. When you're in the early stages and things feel so badly, you might feel as though I'm never going to feel normal again, but you will. So today I wanted to give you sort of a description of the transformational stages so that you'll know that you're going to pass through them step by step and you will get to the resolution, you will get to the end of it. So in the very early days, right after you learn that your husband has left or is thinking of leaving and you recognize that your life has totally shifted, you're in what I call the tsunami phase. And it feels like you've been hit by a wave and you don't know where your balance is. You're upside down. You don't know where the sky is. You don't know where the ground is. The world is completely unrecognizable. And you're just feeling like you're drowning. You can hardly get a breath. And you're in survival mode. And that's when the trauma has hit and you feel as though you're never going to be able to feel normal again. And those early stages of the tsunami stage tend to last, that's one of the shortest phases, and it tends to last maybe a matter of weeks, maybe 3-4 months. It tends to resolve after a relatively quick period of time. And after tsunami, then you go into what I'm calling the tornado stage. And in the tornado stage, your thoughts are spinning wildly as you come up with some desperate explanation as to how this could have happened. And that's the stage where you're most intensively obsessing, trying to figure out what happened. What did this mean? Where was he when he said that? And, and trying to grasp something that could explain how this could have happened. So the tornado stage, it's a dangerous time. It's a crazy time. You're not really thinking. You're so preoccupied. You have to be very careful crossing the street, driving a car. I remember when I was in that stage, I would drive the car very deliberately and force myself to really focus on everything that was going on because I just didn't feel like I was totally in control. After tornado, you move into the thunderstorm stage. And you feel besieged and raw and fearful, and you don't know when the next thunderbolt will hit. And so your emotions are ricocheting wildly from fear to grief to anger, from lightning to rain to wind. Like you're just constantly in a state of flux. And this is often the stage that you're in when there are legal proceedings going on and you're getting lawyers' letters and the bailiff is coming to the door and you're trying to decide if you have to sell your house, and all of this turmoil is going on, and that's would be descriptive of the thunderstorm stage. And following that, you move into the longest stage that is typically months, and I call it the ice storm stage. Now, if you're in Australia, you may never have experienced this, but those of us in the northern part of the northern hemisphere know exactly what an ice storm feels like. And it's very hard, it's unrelenting, it's very cold, it's very slow, and you feel as though you're stuck. And this is often the stage where just everything feels interminable. It's hard to get up, it's hard to move, it's hard to make decisions, your mind is a bit frozen, and it feels like it's never gonna end. It will end, but it feels like it's never gonna end. So following the ice storm stage, then you move into what I call the fog stage. And that's where things are starting to soften up. And sometimes you might see a glimmer of light through the fog. And that you have days that are not as intense, and you're starting to maybe recognize the fact that life is not always going to be this hard. Your interior world is still gray, but it's not as intense as it was in the ice storm stage. And your mind is slowly beginning to function normally and thaw. So that you don't have to be quite as attentive when you do anything having to do with using a sharp kitchen knife or driving a car. And after the fog stage, then we start to move into what I call the sun shower. And you know what a sun shower is. That's when the sun is out, but it's raining. So this is where you seesaw back and forth. Some days you sort of feel okay, and you sort of feel a bit hopeful. And other days you get something happens, or you hear a song on the radio, or you see his handwriting in a book on your bookshelf, and then that brings you down again. But you're sort of seesawing back and forth, and it's definitely not as intense. And you started to recognize that there's more color in the world in the sun shower stage. And then you move into the early summer day. And by that, I mean, although the traces of winter and all you've suffered are still present, there are opportunities opening up. And you're not that far away from everything that happened, but you're starting to really turn your focus to your future. And maybe you're not obsessing and thinking about him every single day, every minute of every single day. And you're starting to think about other things. And then you slide into what I hope you will all, and what I eventually got into, which is what I call the temperate summer day. And that's where all of the painful events, they're still obviously will always be with you, but it doesn't hurt so much, or it doesn't hurt much at all. And you're starting to move into the new normal, your new life without your ex-husband. And you're starting to build a future for yourself, and appreciate that there are, like everything in life, there are pluses and minuses, and you're working on your appreciation of your new life and of the possibilities that the future might bring to you. So I'd be very interested to hear where you think you are, what stage you feel as though you're in, and if you could leave a comment below and just add to the discussion and let us know where you think you are and where you think you've come from, and maybe help some of the other women develop that sense of hope that they too will pass through all of these transformational stages. And that's it for today.